You know what's going on with HBO, right?
No.
They just sold to Discovery. Like, AT&T sold them off, and they're splitting off as a company with the Discovery Channel. So you have all those home improvement shows that are going to be mixed with...
Those are going on to HBO?
Well, no, they're going to merge them eventually, I think. Right now there's Discovery Plus and HBO Max, and they're not exactly sure what they're going to do, but they're going to try to compete with all the other big Apple, Amazon,
I mean, that seems like a
Netflix.
Step up for Discovery.
It's not, though, because the person who's taking control of HBO Max says that they're in no rush to try to be the best streaming network, so they're not going to be pumping as much money into those shows as they need to be.
But I'm saying that, like, Discovery's going to get more exposure to it now.
What I'm saying is that this show, Tokyo Vice, might not get another season.
Because of that partnership?
Because, yeah, HBO is now controlled by different masters. I think the new name is Warner Brothers Discovery.
So it's not even HBO Max anymore.
It's not even Warner Bros. Really anymore. They're just keeping that part of the name because it's the older company. Why would Discovery started as like a small local channel in 1985.
I know. But why would Discovery decide to pick up HBO Max when they don't make that type of programming?
So that they have like this huge sort of cable/streaming platform.
When I think of Discovery, I think of like Welcome to Earth or like something like that.
I think of HGTV or like the Food Network. Just stuff I wouldn't normally be watching or subscribed to. But I know that HBO has like 60 million subscribers and Discovery has like 20 million subscribers and Netflix has like 220 million subscribers.
Okay, when I was doing research for WandaVision, I was trying to figure out numbers like those, but it seemed like every single place was like not giving out their numbers. Amazon especially. I think Amazon...
Well, these are all speculative numbers.
Oh, okay.
And I think they're based off the earnings reports that people have gathered. Anyways, point is, this is a good show. Tokyo Vice is not Miami Vice. It's not Hawaii Five-0. It's not Tokyo Drift.
It's not those CBS like drama
Whenever
shows.
you see the word Tokyo in a title, it's usually kind of like a hammy, blow-up Michael Bay type thing, right?
Yeah.
But this is a serious TV show, and it stars Baby Driver himself.
Ansel Elgort, yeah.
And there's a couple things. First, it's the second Japanese series that I've had to watch in a row after Pachinko. Because Pachinko was a mix of Japanese, Korean, and a little bit of English. This is Japanese, a little bit of English, and I just found that interesting.
Yeah, because they actually did shoot it in Tokyo, just like Pachinko did.
Well, no, you told me Pachinko was actually shot in Vancouver.
Right.
And I was disappointed.
But they meant to shoot it in Tokyo.
Because one of my pros for shows like this is that I'm not constantly seeing New York landmarks or LA landmarks or just places that I'm so used to. Every TV show uses them. The other thing I'm crazy happy about is that apparently Ansel Elgort and the lady from Legion,
Rachel Keller, yeah,
speak Japanese almost fluently.
Yeah. No, I mean, the thing is that Ansel Elgort, he at first was learning Japanese for this show phonetically, but then he was like, Phonetically. But then he was like, you know what? No, I have to be like really authentic with this. So we ended up like taking, I think, a couple classes. He said 8 hours a day. And like by the end,
Japanese is not an easy language to pick up.
He actually had to like start reading it and like learn it.
It's obvious by episode 3. They're tailoring it so that whenever he's not having to speak Japanese, he doesn't. Like,
well, what do you
when
mean?
He's talking to his friends, even though both of them are Japanese and they're used to speaking Japanese with each other, they always speak English with him.
English, yeah.
Even though he supposedly knows it perfectly. He also, so I wasn't sure if it was because they wanted to reach the English audience or if just because he wasn't 100%. But when he does speak it, he seems to have the right accent.
I think it's a mix of both because he was living in Japan. Like he was living in Japan when they were shooting this thing. I think a lot of the crew was. So I think that like
yeah, I mean, how else would you make it there?
Well, originally what happened was they were shooting on March 5th of 2020 in Tokyo, and then 12 days later, because of the pandemic, it got shut down. And then they started to shoot it again in late November of 2020, and I think it took till like June or July of 2021 till shooting wrapped.
He didn't live there throughout the pandemic, though, did he?
No, he went back, but like he explained how like he hung out at people's houses in Japan and like would interview them to try and get a better like course of the language.
Mm-hmm. And he's still just Baby Driver, and I wasn't like as big a fan of Baby Driver as a lot of the world.
Baby Driver is one of my favorite films.
Yeah, but he's lost his car.
Wait, what do you mean?
He does not drive a car in this
obviously
at all.
Not.
He's on a bike. They have cars.
Wait, he's on a bike the whole time?
That's how his mode of transportation is either train or subway or bike.
Okay, what's Ansel Elgort's name in this?
Jake Adelstein.
So they kept the same name, because this is
executive producer Jake Adelstein.
This is based off the memoir that Jake Adelstein came up with in 2009. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a 10-episode series. They have plans to go on for more than just one season, which is strange considering the fact that it's just a book. But how much, like...
I mean, Pachinko's just a book.
Well, yeah, but, like, this is just a memoir. Like, once it's used up,
it's a memoir, but, like, it's like a Catch Me If You Can type story.
Okay, so, like, get into it. Like,
I'll just give my highlights. First of all, Ansel Elgort sucks at baseball. Baseball season just started in the U.S. No, it's one of the last scenes that we see in episode 3.
Okay.
Episode 3 is called Read the Air, but he's at a batting cage, which, cool. Right. We have batting cages in Japan.
Yeah.
And they have him swinging that bat like a crazy person. Like, he doesn't know how to swing a bat, and it was upsetting to watch.
Does he have a batting stance, at least?
He is so bad at baseball that the mafia, the Japanese mafia, break into the baseball area, grab him, stick him in a car, and drive away with him. That's how the cliffhanger ends.
Yeah, that's how the cliffhanger ends, but that's not the reason why the Japanese mafia break in.
That's the way I chose to interpret it. Those swings, like his friends who are Japanese didn't grow up in America, and Japanese baseball is a thing. That's a pretty big sport there. So, like, they were able to hit the ball.
but he was. Did the batting cage look anything like Americans' batting cages do?
Yes, most things look like the same way they do around the world. The one thing that pissed me off, though, was that in Pachinko, they accurately showed that in Tokyo, they have square watermelons.
Right.
But he went to a grocery store, and I saw a circular watermelon, and I was upset. What type of shit show are they running there that they can't show me a square watermelon in this? I'm obviously being sarcastic about a lot of this. This is a great show.
Okay.
The first episode is tremendous.
I heard that the first episode's really good.
The first episode I recommend to everyone. I think it on its own, if it had stayed at that caliber quality, I might be giving this a 9 or 10.
It was directed by Michael Mann, who worked on Miami Vice, the actual TV show, and the 2006 feature film. Yeah, but like Michael Mann is like an acclaimed director. So when they were able to get him on board for the first episode, they said that like the tone, the setting, how it was like used, everything was great about it. Even the reviews that ended up not being as favorable to episode 2 or 3 complimented the first episode a lot.
Yeah. The first episode, great. The second 2 episodes aren't even that bad either. It's just that the first one was so good. The Jake Adelstein character, though, it feels like he's supposed to be James Bond. So everything about him is supposed to be smart,
suave,
more focused on getting what he wants. He wants to be this great reporter. So he's ingraining himself into Japanese culture. He's only been there a couple of years. He's studying all these different topics, from econ to weather patterns to city crime. He's taught himself Japanese. He's learning martial arts.
Is it like one?
He's partying all night. Like, he's got all...
You see all of that in like a montage, maybe?
Not a montage. The first episode, again, is like exposition, but without any talking. It's just you watching him go about his life. It's pretty cool. And so by the end, you're like, this guy is pretty incredible. He goes in and takes his qualifying exam to get into the paper that he wants to be at, which is the most successful Japanese paper that there is. Mm-hmm. And he looks like he's a shoo-in because he finishes his test first, and then he realizes he didn't complete the back page, but he still aces the damn thing. So
he didn't complete the back page, but he still aced
he finishes like 10 minutes early, and then he's like, why is everyone else still writing? And he just sits there for a really long time. When they're collecting the tests, he turns it over and he sees he didn't complete some of the questions. But so that was just one of the scenes that kind of introduces you to the character. So you expect him to sort of be good at everything, but not baseball.
It just always comes back to that. Is that the only time in the show where you see him fail?
That was just the last thing I saw. Yeah. The thing that confused me while I was watching the 3 episodes is that I missed in the first episode, because they only publicized it for like 1 second, what year we're in.
We're in the 90s, right?
We're in 1999 for the majority. The first scene, we were in 2001, but the majority of everything that we watched is 1999.
The first scene is like in media res, right? In the middle of everything.
Yeah, it takes place in a hotel when he is about to release his article that he's been working on for years, which is probably having to do with what he's just uncovering for the rest of the show, which is the lengths to which the Japanese mafia between the Yakuza and the Tozawa are, I guess, fighting each other and also causing a lot of murders to happen that aren't getting reported.
Why are they not getting reported, do they say?
Because Japan doesn't want the negative publicity. They get more money if they have less of a death rate because of homicide, I guess. And then also, like, there's these shady shadow companies that are popping up all over that are probably controlled by Tozawa or Yakuza. And they're getting people to kind of self-suicide.
Oh, okay.
Like going outside their house, pouring fuel on themselves, and then burning themselves.
You don't ever actually
publicly.
see any of that, right?
That first episode. That's how, like, Ansel Elgort gets so confused. Or, like, he finds the matchbox, and he's like, this company looks shady. So he goes and he finds out that everybody who's dying has this huge loan out. But usually loan sharks aren't going to kill their clients because then they never get the money.
Right, obviously.
So he's wondering. So he goes to the actual location of one of their businesses, and it's completely cleared out. And that's a common theme that even the police have picked up upon. In media res scene, he's already hanging out with this detective that we meet again in the first, but also mostly in the third episode.
Is that Hiroto Katagiri?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That's played by Ken Watanabe. He was in The King and I on Broadway.
He was in a lot more than that. I've seen him in a lot.
Yeah.
The Samantha lady, the one from Legion, speaks Japanese. I think she spoke Japanese in Legion.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, they did a lot of things in Legion. Her character was replaced by Odessa Young. They had like someone completely different, but then like in the end, due to scheduling conflicts, they ended up getting Rachel Keller.
That's really interesting. But before I realized what year it took place in, I was trying to guesstimate because I could see there's no cell phones. Everybody would be on their cell phones nowadays. There's older cars, but not too old. People are smoking on the streets more than they would be, and inside publicly more than they would be even today. Women are treated as second-class citizen, which may be, there still might be a patriarchy, but it's not to the extent that it was in even 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Laptops were old, but they were still in existence. And there was a Game Boy. One of the mafia members, the Yakuza members, had a Game Boy Color there. So I was like, this has to be at least 1998.
Could you tell what game it was?
He wasn't playing it. It was literally just next to like his weed or whatever. And then, so I guesstimated late 90s, and I was right about that just by those. But the weird thing is that, with that basketball show that you just watched, Winning Time.
Winning Time, yeah.
And with most period pieces like Pachinko and stuff, they put a filter almost on the entire...
right, with Winning Time, it was one of those things where it was supposed to make it look like it was filmed in the 80s.
And, like, the entire setting, like, what was the porn?
Oh, Minx?
Minx, yeah. The costumes, the clothing, the furniture. This didn't have that as much. Like, there was a lot of modern, like, chairs, and the rooms didn't look all too old or anything.
So did it not match up with the 90s, or are you saying that purposefully it was so?
No, I think it's because it was, like, Tokyo was maybe even ahead of its time.
Oh, okay.
It looked kind of... like it could have taken place a little bit today. But because of the lack of cell phones, it became really, really obvious it couldn't be today. I also didn't know that the trains or the subways in Japan don't run 24/7. Like subways in New York, for the most part.
Oh yeah, it's all day. But like here, when do they cut off? Did they say?
I think it's 11 p.m. It's like when the last, because he misses one of his subway rides. He gets the job at the paper company.
Is this the second episode?
No, that's the first episode. But the thing is, he's white. So this is the only show I've seen where the straight tall white guy is the minority, being bullied and being called gaijin everywhere. And people are like pushing him around, and he's definitely not wanted.
I did read one article say that like this could very much fall into possibly the white savior complex thing.
Yeah, well, that it goes again to making your central main character a genius / amazing person. It doesn't necessarily have to be the fact that he's white. It's just that a lot of shows, from House to Queen's Gambit, are going to make, they'll be flawed, but at the same time, they'll always succeed. They'll be the character that everyone else is underappreciating until they really just beat up everyone else.
I mean, it is based off of Jake Adelstein, and J.T. Rogers. I was surprised to see his name because he's been in theater forever. And he really only does theater things. I think he's acted, directed a ton of plays. But the reason why he ended up writing this show is because he actually knew Jake Adelstein back in high school. They were friends. Mm-hmm. And even when the Japanese mafia was coming after Jake Adelstein and his family and friends, Jake JT Rogers was one of the people that they like ended up calling and like going after. So in the end, he was able to like make this show.
But he's alive.
Yeah.
So clearly things turned out okay.
Yeah, they're both still alive.
But the Yakuza still exists.
Yeah.
And so they're just like, you know what? Fine.
Yeah, well, that was the interesting thing about reading that still was like being filmed in Tokyo because obviously, they
don't have as much power, but they're still there,
right? But they still had to follow rules. Like that was the thing that Ansel Elgort and like the showrunner were saying. They were like, when we were in Tokyo, we made sure to like make
several times in the first scene, and then also later on, like you don't want to drink anything that you haven't seen put in front of you, like prepared in front of you, or that given to you by someone that you trust,
right?
Because they will try to poison you, kind of Putin-esque. But so they're not people to be messed with lightly. The interesting thing is that they're not all portrayed as like evil. There's this other person, his foil, Sato, who we see is rising up the ranks, kind of in the same grunt work that Baby Driver here is doing at the newspaper. He's basically just the new recruit for the Yakuza. And
so the Yakuza has their like
and
hands
they're sort of
on
friends.
The newspaper. Okay.
By the third episode, he's met Sato and at the nightclub that he hangs out, and he's in a love triangle with him and Samantha. That gets a little like, I don't know why Samantha is such a big part of the show quite yet, but I'm sure that'll come around.
Well, yeah, I know that the show it's doing something strange where it released the first 3 episodes, and then next week it's going to be releasing 2 episodes. The next week, 2 episodes again. The next week, 2 episodes again, and then they're saving the finale for just 1 week. So
and they're long episodes. Like, the first one's over an hour.
They're all like at least an hour, right?
Kijikaise's episode 2, Read the Air episode 3. I think they might be under an hour, but yeah, don't hold me to that.
I know the third episode, I think it has the least reviews on IMDb, but it has the highest score. It has like an 8.7. And then the first
episode has that big twist at the end where he's been kidnapped. Sato, he's kind of new to the whole mafia gist, and so he's kind of...
Are you seeing it through his eyes whenever you are on the mafia storyline?
We're seeing several things through his eyes. We see him going around collecting debts. We see him getting in trouble and people making fun of him for liking Samantha. Then he beats the shit out of like one of the other Yakuza members, and then he gets disciplined. That's one of the things that they really push some cultural Japanese elements on this, like the idea that discipline is so strong in structure, like even the newspaper itself. And this newspaper, you think of like newspaper movies or shows that we've seen recently or ever.
I'm thinking of like the Post right now.
I'm thinking of... So you're talking about...
the Tom Hanks film that came out.
Not the Tom Hanks film. There's also Spotlight, Inventing Anna. Everything always represents... The Wire represents a newspaper as really struggling. Like they're losing members or subscriptions.
Even BoJack Horseman.
They need to find a way to make money while at the same time being able to write good articles, not just bubbly BuzzFeed type stuff. This doesn't deal with that same issue. Like everybody loves this paper, and so this paper is just filled with
trusted
people.
Source,
and Ansel Elgort fucks up almost immediately because his first article that he actually gets published at the paper where a lot of people don't want him there because he's white. Is about this panty thief, and he says, because he goes to this other more senior writer who's really successful, who has an in with the cops, and he basically gives him the same advice every time because he's more concerned about just like hearing Jake's thoughts on how to pick up Western women. He's like, there is no murder in Japan, basically stating no, they're never going to actually report the murders if they don't have a witness.
Okay.
And then when he was like, there is no panty thief, he took it literally. He wrote an article saying there actually isn't a panty thief. These women are making it up.
God, that's what he got from it?
Well, the idea is that the wind had blown away their pants or their underwear. But so he wrote that up. Then they catch the panty thief. He's in trouble. He writes another bad article. He's out. That's when he catches his big break because he teams up with the detective. And the detective gives him a good lead, actually brings him to the Tozawa place. That the Tozawa is the lower class mafia that's trying to take out the Yakuza, but they don't want to make it clear that they're doing that. They want to do it more behind the scenes.
So they go to so
the police department. No. It gets complicated, but the Tozawa the night before had went and intimidated one of the Yakuza's umbrellaed protection units. Like they go and they say, we'll protect your property if you pay us. And then the Tozawa people went to one of those properties and intimidated the guy and almost killed him. The police intervened and said, okay, we'll deal with this later. The next day, the police show up at the Tozawa place and they arrest a few individuals with Jake there as a spectator, and then so that he can write about it. But basically, it comes down to the Swords and Firearms Control Act, which they're trying to keep the peace in Japan by making sure that the mafias can exist, but that they don't tread on each other's feet.
Okay. So it's like keeping your territory type thing.
Yes. So this could be related to any of those gang shows that we've done. However, there really isn't anything exactly like this show. Another one I compared it to is Strangers, which was a British television series that took place in Hong Kong. Again, though, it's nothing really like this as far as the plot. Also, the bad guy in Better Call Saul is sort of similar to Sato's character in this, where you can see he might end up being good.
So he has humanity to him.
Well, he's friends with Jake. And now that he knows that Jake is a reporter and working with he's either going to become like his worst enemy or turn to like one of his confidants or something.
On Rotten Tomatoes, it has an 88%. It had like an 8 when it first came out. Yesterday it had a 7.6 on IMDb. Today it has an 8.1. So it keeps on changing. But a lot of people like the show. A lot of fans have like jumped on board being like, yes, we think Ansel Elgort really kills in this role. I know
he does a better job with this than he did in Baby Driver. He actually still has the tapes he had in Baby Driver.
Well, it's funny you say a thing about the tapes because Michael Mann actually, something he does on set is like he will tape record everything. And if there's like if the scene doesn't work, but he likes the way people say it, he will make like the actors listen to it over and over and over again so they can replicate the same type of thing.
Yeah, but in the show, he's always having his headphones on listening to tapes from his sister back home in the U.S. His sister apparently tried to commit suicide at one point, but she seems super happy. She just wishes that he would contact their house more. And so he calls the mom, and then the mom's character is like, I'm worried about your sister. And she stopped taking her meds. And then he's like, she's fine. Then he hangs up on her. But he always listens to her. She's on like tape 23, it says. So they just exchange those back and forth. Like they send care packages to him in Japan. He hasn't been there for a couple years. And then when he talked to Samantha, apparently her family life is also a little rocky. So that's the personal stuff. But yeah, it is funny that in both his roles that I've seen him in, he is wearing headphones and just like listening to people for a lot of it. He has longer hair in this too.
There's like one picture that if you keep on typing into like Google, it'll continually show, and it's him like running down the street with his hair like flapping.
That might be because he was asking people about, well, he runs a lot, but it might be because he was asking people about their missing panties. That was the beginning of episode 2, was when there was this cook with like a giant knife running after him through the street. People don't read the fact that he wears this cuff around his arm that shows that he's a media person, but like everyone assumes because of his height and his race.
So how does that lead to someone running down the street with a knife?
Because apparently he was literally asking women, being like, "So have you had any missing panties lately?" And then like the guy's or the girl's husband heard and started running after him with a knife.
How does he not know how that sounds?
I'm sure that there's more context to it. We didn't see the scene of him actually doing it. Again, there's some Japanese culture stuff like gift giving, for instance. Everything is an exchange there. Like if he wants information from a cop, he has to give them a gift first. If he wants information from Miyamoto, he has to pay for his dinner. But after Miyamoto screwed him over with that one lead with the panty article, he then he took him out to dinner, and then he asked for a ton of stuff, and then he just left, and Miyamoto had to pay for it. So he got the final laugh.
Ever since the book came out, they've been trying to make it into a film, and that originally was made into this TV series. But Daniel Radcliffe back in 2015 was cast to play like Jake Adelstein.
I think he's doing a good job the way it is. I can't see Daniel Radcliffe playing the role. I have a few predictions. I think that one of his friends who is also working with him, he has 2 main friends who are at the batting cage with him.
You're saying the ones that speak English.
One that we find out is like gay, but because this is 20 years ago, he doesn't want to talk about it. And then the other one who's feeling really bogged down with work. So I think he might actually turn into an industry type character where he might kill himself or something bad might happen to him.
You think it's going to go that dark?
he seems pretty depressed. He's mentioned it more than once, and usually when a show tries to do something like that, they're going to shock you later on with how deep it gets. Because even Ansel Elgort's character, Jake, tries to console him at certain points. He's like, we do this to give the world more knowledge. Like, his dad had told him when he was a kid that, like, he had asked, why do we read newspapers? And he was like, well, every day the world gets a little bit smarter because of this. And so that's what we do here at this news organization, is we make the world just a little bit smarter every single day. Very cool message, but I don't know if it sunk in. The guy is getting grilled at work. After Jake came out with a good article because of the whole drama with the Tozawa thing, he no longer is like the worst of the three. Like, he's the least successful. So I think that one guy is feeling kind of down.
So if you had to rate the show as a whole with the 3 episodes, because I know you said that you'd give the first episode like a 9 or 10, would you agree with the IMDb rating of an 8.1?
9.77.
9.77?
And I would still watch the rest of it. The other episodes weren't bad. In fact, they had some pretty cool scenes. One of my favorite scenes is when Detective Katagiri, he really bonds with him in that 3rd episode. He goes to his house. He presents gifts to the wife. The wife's like, he's not here. And then he's like, I came a really long way. Will he be back soon? No. And then, like, he's leaving the house, and, like, Detective Katagiri opens the window, and he's like, come on in. but that wasn't even my favorite part. My favorite part is after they've, like, become real good friends, because he kind of Jake admits that he doesn't know what he's doing, that he really needs help. And Katagiri, who we've seen, he's also on the investigation front for the murders that Jake has been looking into. Even the symbol, the shadow symbol of the company that he was able to find that didn't exist anymore. They have been on sort of the same path, figuring out what's going on. However, Katagiri can't go further because of this whole link with the police and the mafia. He can't even give Jake his notes. So what he does is he says goodnight to Jake. He goes to put his daughters to sleep. One of the daughters runs out while Jake is leaving with the father's notes. And this daughter's like 5 years old. And she's like, my father would really be upset if he knew that I was giving you this because of blah, blah, blah. Like a rule that she never wouldn't have been able to say. And it was very clear what was happening. It was very cute.
So he like doesn't accept.
So he gives him the case files. Okay. He's giving him the case files through his daughter. And then Jake takes them, and now he has even more leads.
I mean, that's basically all I have.
I mean, there's a lot to get. There's a lot of stuff that happened. Like Samantha, we're not exactly sure if she's an escort or a prostitute or what her backstory is, because she's keeping that all close to the vest, and she's just working at one of the nightclubs there. So we don't know what her full story is.
Like a stripper, though?
She's not like, what they do there is that they're kind of entertainment. Like, they just keep the wine flowing, and then people can rent them to just be at their table for like 30 minutes. And that's what Jake does often, and that's what Sato does often.
How often does he show up to the nightclub?
He's showed up there a good number of times now. After he first heard her saying, that's where he meets Sato, and they get into this conversation. She's like, don't go talk to that dude. He's part of the mafia, or he's like dangerous. And then he immediately walks over and he's like, nice kicks, bro. Mine are better. And then they start arguing about that, but like in a friendly way. And by the end, he's in the first episode, they'd even seen each other. He had complimented, or he had been like, you got your tattoos the old way, but the guy had ignored him. But now they're on like speaking terms. So
well, I stated before, this show it's meant, like the showrunner said, we can go multiple seasons. I'd really want to. So
yeah, I'm going to keep watching the show. I think it's worth it. I guess I can end it. They also made a mention with Pachinko, one of the places that the mafia protects. You know, if they get their payment, is they mentioned, they were like, let's go to the Pachinko place next. You said this was shot before that actually came out. So knowing what Pachinko is after learning from the last show, it was cool to catch that reference here.
Well, it's weird how like a game place or like kind of like an arcade is.
Oh, they show arcades a lot. There's the nightclubs look surprisingly modern. The arcades obviously are something from the past, but they don't look like they're like in an old arcade exhibit. It looks like just any sort of Pizza Hut, you know, but that's just like a dark version of it. But we don't actually see Pachinko being played.
Oh, okay. So we don't actually see.
No, when they're about to go to the Pachinko place, Sato and his, I think like his uncle or his brother or something, see a bunch of dresses just hanging out, and they steal them, and then they give them to the girls at the nightclub. So or sell them to him.
Okay, IGN gave it an 8 out of 10. USA Today said that the main two, you were talking about Samantha and Jake Adelstein, the actors are really good, but they wonder why they're spending the bulk of time on them particularly.
Jake, it makes sense. It's his show. It's his story. Samantha, not so much. Because it's like, why do we need to know her friendly relationship, why she hates Duke, why she's friends with these other it's like, that's not her story. That's not leading us to the 2001 storyline, unless it is, and we just don't know. Okay, yeah. We also see in the first scene, I went back, it's the Tozawa character. So it's not the Yakuza who he ends up speaking with, it's the Tozawa guy.
Okay.
So, and that's the one who's threatening him. And it'll be interesting to see where that leads. Also, he said he didn't smoke at the beginning of this, and by the end, he is smoking. So it's everybody.
It's like the Peaky Blinders thing.
Did Cillian Murphy not smoke in the beginning?
No, Thomas Shelby wasn't drinking in the beginning, and then 4 episodes of the way through the final season, he did.
Oh, but that was like a life choice. This was more just like he didn't smoke beforehand. Anyways, yeah. All right, so thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.